Score more for less with our NK News Shop discount campaign. Ready to upgrade your wardrobe with some unique flair? At the NK News Shop, podcast listeners buying any 2 items from our t-shirt or hoodie collections will snag their third for half off. Whether you're eyeing our North Korea-themed gear for yourself or as gifts, now is the perfect time to act. Don't miss out. Head to shop.nknews.org and make the most of this limited time offer. That's shop.nknews.org. Hello listeners and welcome to the NK News Podcast. I'm your host, Jacco Zwetsloot, and today it is Tuesday, the 4th of November 2025, and it is Melbourne Cup Day, the race that stops a nation. If you're Australian, you know all about Melbourne Cup, and if you're not, it makes absolutely no sense to you whatsoever.
Huh?
We welcome back in the studio. We've got Jeongmin, we've got Joon, and we've got Shreyas. Welcome.
Thanks for having us.
You are fresh back from APEC, and let's break it gently to our listeners, those who may not be up to speed. Donald Trump did not meet Kim Jong Un while he was in Korea, did he?
No. People will stop listening to this.
Yeah. Well, we don't want to bury the lead. Okay, but I do want to hear from you, from the three of you. What was it like being there on the ground in that hub, that mecca of world culture and politics, Gyeongju?
Which was our expectation. But actually, it was, not to bury the lead, it was very underwhelming for reporters to be there, honestly, because we wanted to see live action. We wanted to see the leaders coming in, leaders going out, leaders meetings, sideline meetings, all the stuff that you expect from a summit meeting and reporter being there, talking to experts, whatnot.
Right.
But the media center was blocked off from everything. So we actually could not go to any of the actual summit meeting unless you are very limited White House pool. So if you're a White House pool, well, I envy you.
Wow.
But for other reporters, we were stuck in this room where basically all the reporters were looking at the screen, audioless screen, looking at the footage from the airports where the leaders were arriving. But one thing that we did get to see on the first day was Donald Trump arriving. So because we were so blocked off from everything, we wanted to go on a recon tour. And so I started walking around the perimeter, and I started just walking aimlessly, trying to get into buildings later on with Joon. And then I saw a bunch of reporters just waiting in front of what looked like U.S. Secret Service.
Mm-hmm.
And then more people came over, more police came over. It turned out Donald Trump's chopper was about to arrive, and then we saw the beast.
What's the name for that? Who knows?
Marine One.
Thank you.
So we saw multiple Marine ones coming by and then arriving. And the beast as well, we saw a bunch of dummies first.
Well, that's the big car?
Yeah, the big car, the Donald Trump big
Cadillac.
car. A bunch of dummies first, and then the one that Trump was in, and then followed by other vehicles that looked quite interesting. What were they?
Yeah, so they were just Secret Service vehicles that were going on the back. There were SWAT police vehicles as well that were just ahead of the police motorcade that followed. So it's quite an interesting array of cars for the U.S. president.
Did you throw a question at the back of the car as it went by?
We should have tried that, but it was very apparent that they were speeding up quite much.
Boy. Okay, wow. Shreyas, how was it being in Gyeongju for you?
I mean, Gyeongju itself is a lovely city, and the weather was great. Unfortunately, as Jeongmin mentioned, we were essentially stuck inside an international media center with a whole bunch of other reporters who, like us, had come in expecting that they would not actually be spending time at the media center and would be getting to talk to officials, getting some interviews, getting a taste of the action.
Which we did get a little bit.
We'd got a little bit, but yeah, I think
Not as much as we wanted.
Not as much as we wanted. And I think it was only after getting there that we realized that they had many different layers of access for different events, and perhaps not as many side events as we were like. Certainly none that we were aware of. So we essentially spent 3-4 days engaging in a group therapy session with other journalists.
I'm getting a very strong vibe, an echo of the 7th Congress of the Workers' Party of Korea held back in April 2016, when Chad and a bunch of other foreign media were allowed to go to Pyongyang and were then held in a building very, very far away and were at some stage taken on a walkabout to an intersection and sort of said, that's the building where it's all happening. way over there in the background.
Now,
That's
to
as
be
close as
fair,
they got.
we were not that far away, but in some ways that made worse. We could see people going around our building to get to
Oh, that is
the main
irritating.
menu.
And I did get
yeah.
to talk to National Security Advisor Lee Sung-nak, and we all got to ask questions.
Whom you've known for many years, right?
Yes, like even like since he was ambassador.
Right.
But he was about to faint. I thought he looked so tired after all the tariff discussion.
Oh,
And I got to talk to the policy chief, Kim Jong Un, and the big takeaway was like President Lee Jae-myung mentioning North Korea.
Right.
When he was talking about nuclear submarines, like North Korean submarines, we have to deter, blah blah blah. And
Well,
then
hang
he
on,
got
let's not jump the nuclear gun here. So
Oh,
to speak.
sorry.
We've got to get to that. What? So, generally speaking, how big a topic of conversation was North Korea? Did it only pop up in these sideline meetings between Trump and Lee, and Lee and Xi, and Lee and Takeshi?
Pretty much.
APEC was focused mainly on economic issues, so it's not something that's North Korea won't come up as a hot topic in that economic leaders week. But of course, as you mentioned, the sideline meetings with Trump, Xi Jinping, Takeshi, even like a short mention of North Korea would come out. I think, as Jeongmin just mentioned, the Trump-Lee summit, was seeing quite a lot of North Korea mentions and working together with the United States to deter North Korea, especially North Korean submarines that were underwater threats with South Korea's own nuclear-powered submarine.
Right. Okay. So Trump, there was a lot of speculation going in there that Trump might reach out, and he did seem to show some interest, not incredibly active, but he did say to Lee Jae-myung that he would work very hard to achieve nuclear peace together with Kim Jong Un. Tell us a bit more about that.
So it sounded like Trump actually, like our expectation, he really, really wanted to meet Kim personally. So it was Trump's desire to actually go, and it sounded like there were some sort of contacts made. The foreign minister of South Korea mentioned that it wasn't South Korea, but the U.S. side that reached out. It's really unclear if North Korea responded at all or responded with a no. So that part is really unclear, but still, it sounded like they were preparing something. That's why we had Chad standing by in Seoul to be able to drive up to Paju if anything happens.
And that's why we had CNN booking out the rooftop cafe at Imjingang, etc., etc., and Fox had sent out their newsman.
Exactly.
But it was very different from 2019, in which Trump sort of literally he tweeted to the world, "Let's meet." And North Korea, how did they respond again? Did they send a letter to?
They posted on KCNA just saying, we are open to
their
meeting.
Their version of Twitter.
Yeah, their version of Twitter. And saying like, they even acknowledged that they had seen the tweet. And so they managed to arrange a last minute meeting. And
I wonder why Trump didn't do that again.
So one of the things that he did say this time, and which is very much the case, was sure, he would have liked to meet Kim Jong Un, but apart from the possible lack of interest and lack of response from North Korea was also not the main priority of this visit for Kim Jong Un.
China.
For Trump. Yeah, China. So he met Xi Jinping in Busan.
Right.
So sadly, another main event,
far away from
Gyeongju.
Yeah.
But essentially, I think he just popped into Gyeongju for about a day, headed to Busan the very next morning to meet Xi Jinping, and then flew back out. So he wasn't actually here for the main APEC economic leaders meeting.
Junho, this nuclear-powered submarine thing, were we expecting that? Was that on the agenda?
Well, it wasn't really something that we were expecting to come out of Lee Jae-myung's mouth, especially from the opening remarks that he delivered, especially in front of all of the media right after he gave Trump the gold crown. So, it's not something that we would expect coming out from a South Korean leader. But of course, there were talks about nuclear-powered submarines and also nuclear latency coming out from the South Korean political sort of spectrum before any ROK-US summit, even before August when they met for the first time. So I think that nuclear-powered submarines, it was pretty gutsy from Lee Jae-myung to give that sort of opening remark. Of course, he alluded to the fact that there was some misunderstanding between the two leaders at an undisclosed time. It was probably during their August summit. But yes, that was something that came as a bit of a shock to us.
The mistake part was interesting. Like, we had no idea what he was talking about. It was apparent.
He didn't give any detail.
Yeah, it was apparent that they discussed this like at certain point that we just don't know about. And then Lee said that, it's not that we want a nuclear armed submarine.
Right.
We want a nuclear powered submarine
So the engine is powered by nuclear.
Exactly.
Which is a mistake that a lot of lay people, years ago, I remember thinking, it's a nuclear submarine.
SSBN and it's very difficult to figure out what that actually means. But nuclear powered submarine basically means that the submarine stays longer. It's more sustainable underwater
And quieter.
Yeah.
and quieter. So for deep sea operation, it's better, which means it's a main target is China. Honestly,
Yeah, well, that's what Australia's getting from the US too under the AUKUS deal, and so now Korea. I mean, did they sign a deal? Does Korea now have like a Korean version of an AUKUS deal, or is this just
It's just a presidential
concept?
statement.
Yeah, okay.
Right. So
it's
just,
a Truth
yeah.
Social post. No, seriously.
Yeah.
Like Trump announced that he gave approval that South Koreans can build it in the Philly shipyard.
Yeah, there's nothing binding at the moment.
But it's not
Okay.
clear even, like, if they're getting the technology.
Yeah.
It's very unclear. But the way that, by the way, when Lee mentioned, like, we want to deter North Korea, China submarines, it was something U.S. want to hear. Right.
Lee said North Korea and Chinese submarines.
North Korean and Chinese submarines. And then in
Well.
the evening, the National Security Advisor came over to reporters and said, actually, he meant North Korean and
Whoops.
Chinese waters.
What is it? What? Deterring waters?
The submarines in those waters. But experts tell us that it means the same thing. But we was saying like he was trying to dial it down a little bit.
Shreyas, have we got any response from North Korea or China to these announcements about South Korea possibly getting nuclear-powered submarines?
Certainly not yet. It does feel like it could happen at some stage. I know that some people would say, well, North Korea has also been developing its own nuclear submarines, so wouldn't it be a little hypocritical? And to that, I'd have to say that has never really stopped North Korea from, any rhetoric against South Korea and the US.
Well, and I can certainly see China being quite strongly anti-South Korea getting nuclear-powered
absolutely.
submarines. Yeah.
Particularly if, as Jeongmin said, the wording implied it would target China and North Korea. That's something that they're not going to be all that pleased about. And particularly this came just a couple of days before Lee Jae-myung's first summit with Xi Jinping. So it probably would have, which may have been part of why Lee Sung-lak was so quick to backtrack on those comments. Don't really want to go into those talks with a nuclear submarine hanging over over their heads.
Was it mentioned in the context of deterrence?
Yes.
Okay, so this is, we're just getting these as a defensive measure so you guys don't try anything.
And also Lee was like, it's to make sure that we are capable to protect ourselves. It's sort of like in line with what U.S. say the allies should defend themselves sort of rhetoric.
Sort of an extension of the self-reliant defense that we've seen from
Self-reliance.
Yeah, so like self-reliant defense, like
we used to hear that more from the other North Korea.
Yeah.
Other North Koreans.
The other Korea.
the other Koreans. Yes.
But one other thing, of course, was they did say it would help support U.S. efforts in the region, partly through their self-reliance, but also, to be honest, when it comes to Trump, nothing really gets through to him quicker than suggesting that they're behind the U.S. mission and interest in the region. And that's where the China aspect comes back in all over again.
Right. Now, President Lee Jae-myung also had a sideline meeting with the new Japanese Prime Minister and also the top diplomats of Japan, the U.S. and South Korea all got together. They had their own meeting. So tell us a little bit about that, Shreyas, since you did the coverage.
So first was the meeting between the foreign ministers of the US, South Korea, and Japan. And essentially, they agreed to maintain close cooperation on denuclearization of North Korea while continuing efforts to maintain peace and stability through dialogue and diplomacy with North Korea. But they didn't really go much beyond that. So in the past, we've seen these ministerial meetings also focus on other issues, whether it's North Korea sanctions evasion, human rights issues, military cooperation with Russia, and more recently, cryptocurrency theft. But this time, they just kept it as basic as possible, just a couple of lines about essentially wanting to strengthen cooperation. And part of it may just be down to South Korea toning down its own focus. The US has also been deprioritizing North Korea issues. And in the case of Japan, they just have a new government that's taken charge. So for all of them, it was perhaps not more about signaling cooperation in a broad range of areas, rather than necessarily really doubling down on their North Korea policy at this point.
Okay, and then the meeting between Lee Jae-myung and Prime Minister Takaichi?
Yeah, so that was perhaps one where, more than even the North Korea issue, a lot of eyes were on how the two of them would deal with each other. Because in the past, Lee Jae-myung has had somewhat strong anti-Japan rhetoric, been critical of Japan's approach to historical issues such as the use of wartime forced labor and comfort women for sexual slavery. And Takaichi, at the same time, is particularly hawkish, particularly conservative, and has never really gone along with the idea that Japan has anything to apologize for on these issues. Certainly on paper, they should be very much at odds with each other. But when they met, both seem to be taking a much more, and I know we overuse this word for Lee Jae-myung, but they're certainly emphasizing it, a more pragmatic approach. They were both trying to say, we want to look ahead to a future-oriented and stable relationship, rather than necessarily just dwelling on our differences. Sure, there will be problems, but we want to cooperate. And one area of cooperation, of course, is North Korea. And quite interestingly, South Korea didn't really touch upon that in its readouts of the meeting. They didn't really focus on denuclearization or anything else. But Japan did. So the Japanese Prime Minister's office said that they'll continue working with each other to ensure the complete denuclearization of North Korea, as well as seeking the resolution of the abduction issue, which relates to North Korea's kidnapping of Japanese nationals.
Now, Lee Jae-myung, when he met Xi Jinping, also talked about denuclearization of North Korea, and that didn't come out in the Chinese readout of the meeting, did it, Joon?
No, so it's been a recurring theme throughout sort of, I think it was 2019 after Hanoi, where the Chinese government, along with the South Korean administration, when their readouts come out of their bilateral meetings, South Korea mentions the denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula or North Korea's denuclearization. However, Beijing's readouts, they very explicitly leave that out.
Skip over that, yeah. Well, it's interesting to see the D word mentioned so many times there at
D
APEC.
word?
Yeah, denuclearization. Sorry. It's just that I felt for the last 6 months or a year that it's kind of gone out of fashion, the D word, and now it's kind of back in there, although, as we pointed out, that sometimes it gets left out of the readout. In the case of the Lee Takaichi meeting, it got missed out of the South Korean readout, and in the case of the Lee Shi meeting, it got missed out of the Chinese readout. So do you feel, Jeongmin, how do you feel? Is denuclearization front and center again? Is it a thing that people believe in and are going to keep pursuing, despite the fact that North Korea says time and time again, listen, you guys, it's a fantasy. Denuclearization, it's like a unicorn. It's never going to happen. We're never going to give up this sacred sword.
I think it's treated like the word unification because it comes with a lot of connotations. People mean different things when they say unification, right? Depending on you're a progressive here, a conservative here. And when you say denuclearization now from South Korean government, it means the END initiative from Lee, the three-phase denuclearization roadmap.
Engage, I think, was normalize.
Normalize.
And denuclearize. Denuclearize. Good God, the D word.
The D word. and from like a lot of U.S. experts' point of view, when you hear denuclearization, it just sounds like something that already failed in 2019. From North Korean point of view, it's something that you should not even mention if you want us. Yeah, it's a non-starter.
Yeah. Okay.
Also, just to point out, so the E in END stands for exchange.
Oh, I beg your pardon.
Yeah.
Okay. But, okay, there's not a lot of daylight between engage and exchange.
Yeah, no, it's pretty much part of the same strategy. It essentially boosts cooperation and exchanges to engage North Korea.
Okay, so we leave this APEC meeting in Gyeongju with really, I mean, there's nothing new out of it, right? It's just bringing up the D word again and no meetings with Kim Jong Un, and he clearly showed no interest. So is there anything that we haven't touched on? Any last thoughts you'd like to leave us with? Let's start with you, Jeongmin, first.
I think if I have to choose the biggest development from the relevant to our beat was the nuclear and the reprocessing, fuel reprocessing in South Korea. It's about.
Please explain that issue.
It's about nuclear power plant. It's about industries and it's about civilian use basically. But we have to keep a very close eye on South Korean public sentiment. Last time we saw Yoon talk about nuclear things. Public sentiment about nuclear, it went up a lot. And I'm already seeing, I have to wait to see the polls.
Negative or positive public sentiment?
They love nukes.
South Korean people
went up.
Okay.
And this time around, I'm wondering, because it's a progressive talking about nuclear power,
Uh-huh.
I'm waiting to see whether progressive citizens here start to agree to nuclear armament argument going further. I'm already seeing signs of it because not many people tell the difference between 20% enrichment and 90% weapons. It's kind of technical.
Yeah. Well, and ever since the Fukushima disaster in Japan, nuclear energy has been very unfavorably seen in Korea, especially by the progressive side of politics, the
That's
Lee
what I
Jae-myung side.
thought.
So now it's like, actually, we need a lot of electricity we're going to become an AI powerhouse. We need all these data centers. We might need nuclear power again. So suddenly it's back on the agenda, and America's sort of saying, it's okay for you guys to enrich a little bit more than you have been.
Yeah, just to add just a little bit,
Go ahead.
I get the nuclear power part and how like South Korea needs like the enrichment and the reprocessing because it's like difficult to stock right now as well.
Right.
But if you see a lot of YouTube like replies and like online communities,
Yes.
a lot of progressives who like say that they're Lee Jae-myung fans, they are saying, South Korea, when they get one, they know how to make 5 out of it. Wink, wink.
Oh, so they're saying we're talking about nuclear energy, but, at some stage down the line, we'll have nuclear weapons.
That's the sentiment that I see right now, which is very interesting to see from the
That is very
progressives.
interesting. Wow. Okay, Junha, your final thought?
I think mainly it was a very South Korea-focused event, so it was very sort of focused on economic issues, so nothing really much other than we've discussed related to Pyongyang or issues related to North Korea or the Korean Peninsula. But of course, the whole sort of concept of South Korea becoming this sort of AI hub, if it does get the 260,000 GPUs promised by NVIDIA,
Jensen Huang.
Yeah, then it does position itself as sort of like an AI big three if it does come into fruition as NVIDIA and the South Korean government hope.
Well, and also I just want to throw in there, I don't know whether this came up in APEC, but I can't help but thinking that it's kind of putting a target on the back of South Korea for North Korea, that, if South Korea becomes this AI hub, it's like, North Korean hackers and phishers and coders suddenly have a lot more.
Plenty of fish to hack in the sea.
Wow, cybersecurity is a different issue.
Right, that is a very different, a very salient issue in Korea. Final thoughts from Shreyas?
Yeah, I think one thing to bear in mind when it came to these sideline summits that we saw at APEC was that essentially for now it's still a lot of talk, whether it was Lee Jae-myung talking about playing pacemaker to Donald Trump's pacemaker in securing peace in the Korean Peninsula and promoting exchanges, whether it was him seeking Chinese support with restoring diplomacy, or Trump talking about essentially approving nuclear subs and expressing his interest in coming back to meet Kim Jong Un.
Oh, yeah.
All of these things are just statements for now. So it'll be interesting to wait and watch and see how over the next few months, maybe over the course of a year, all these start playing out. How do they flesh out the details of the nuclear sub deal? And as for Trump wanting to meet Kim Jong Un, we know he wants a Nobel Peace Prize. At what point does he start moving away from the other conflicts in the world that are not really ending and say, you know what, I want a Korean War peace treaty and I want to meet Kim Jong Un?
Yeah, so a lot of talk, and the devil, as I always say, is in the details. Thank you very much, Jeongmin, Junha, and Shreyas, and we'll see you again soon.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Looking to stay informed about South Korea's fast-evolving political, business and cultural landscape? Join us on Korea Pro, the go-to resource for in-depth analysis expertly curated by top-tier professionals. And now you can pick the membership level that best suits your needs, thanks to our new subscription packages. Starting at just $199 annually, you can access daily analysis and our weekly podcast. Or try our premium membership package, which offers additional perks such as executive briefings, monthly reports and forecasts, networking receptions and event opportunities, as well as much, much more. To find the best fit for you, just head to signup.koreapro.org and become a member today.
Ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of our podcast episode for today. Our thanks go to Brian Betts and Alana Hill for facilitating this episode, And to our post-recording producer genius, Gabby Magnuson, who cuts out all the extraneous noises, awkward silences, bodily functions, and fixes the audio levels. Thank you, and listen again next time.